Chapter 1. The burning question: who would win? What if a fully equipped and trained Macedonian army at its peak faced off against the Galician tribal warriors of ancient Iberia? Who would come out on top? On one side, we have the Macedonian phalanx forged by King Philip and perfected under Alexander the Great, arguably the most disciplined and tactically advanced military force of the ancient world. On the other, the Galicians, fierce Celtic-Iberian tribes from what is now modern-day northwest Spain. Though less known globally than the Macedonians, they were feared for their warrior culture, mobility, and ability to resist both Carthaginian and Roman invasions for decades. So, who wins in this clash between professional soldiers and wild, independent-minded fighters? While the Galicians were undeniably brave and skilled in guerrilla warfare, the Macedonian army was built for large-scale, decisive battles in an open field. It is likely the Macedonians would dominate, but let us dive deeper into why. Chapter 2. Origins and History. How did these armies rise? The Macedonian army rose to prominence under King Philip in the 40th century BC. Before him, Macedonia was seen as a semi-barbaric backwater, but Philip reformed the army with new tactics, training, and weapons. His son, Alexander the Great, took this machine and used it to conquer the Persian Empire from Greece to India. In contrast, the Galicians were part of a broader Celtic and Iberian cultural mix living in the mountainous region of northwestern Iberia. They weren't a unified kingdom but rather a collection of tribes with strong warrior traditions. Their resistance to foreign domination, including Romans and Carthaginians, lasted centuries. Unlike the Macedonians, the Galicians never created a centralized empire, but their decentralized nature made them resilient and hard to defeat through traditional conquest. The Macedonians were a product of military reform and imperial ambition, while the Galicians were born from rugged terrain and tribal independence. Both armies had strengths, but the Macedonians were far more structured and battle-tested. Chapter 3. Weapons and Armor. Steel versus savagery. The Macedonian hoplites and phalangites were armed with the sarissa, a long pike over 5 meters in length, which gave them a massive reach advantage. They wore bronze cuirasses, helmets, and carried small round shields. Their formation, the phalanx, turned these soldiers into a wall of spears. The Galicians, meanwhile, were known for their use of short swords, spears, and javelins. Their armor was lighter, often consisting of leather tunics, chainmail sometimes, and wooden shields. Some warriors fought bare-chested as a show of bravery. Their swords were similar in design to the later Roman gladius, making them deadly in close combat. And while not standardized like the Macedonian gear, Galician weapons were crafted for personal duels and ambush-style fighting. The Macedonians had superior armor and mass combat weapons, especially the sarissa. However, the Galicians excelled in individual combat and mobility, giving them an edge in rough terrain or hit-and-run tactics. Chapter 4. Tactics and Strategy. Discipline versus chaos. The Macedonian army was built around the phalanx, a tightly packed formation of pikemen that could break enemy lines when supported by cavalry and light infantry. This formation was designed for open-field battles and was nearly unstoppable when led by a brilliant general like Alexander. They also used combined arms tactics, cavalry charges, skirmishers, and heavy infantry working together. Their discipline allowed them to execute complex maneuvers even in the heat of battle. The Galicians, on the other hand, preferred guerrilla tactics. They knew their homeland well: steep hills, dense forests, and narrow passes. They ambushed enemies, attacked supply lines, and faded into the mountains before a counterattack could be launched. But in open battle, the Galicians relied on shock tactics, charging headlong into enemy ranks with loud war cries and unpredictable movements meant to intimidate and disrupt. The Macedonians were masters of organized warfare, capable of winning massive battles and conquering empires. The Galicians were experts in survival and asymmetrical warfare, perfect for resisting invaders but not for taking cities or holding land. Chapter 5. Logistics and Culture. Sustaining war. Over time, the Macedonians had a well-developed logistics system. They built roads, maintained supply chains, and fortified camps. Soldiers were trained to live off the land and follow strict routines. Their victories often led to loot and tribute, funding further expansion. Their military culture was deeply tied to the state. Being a soldier was prestigious, and service brought honor and rewards. The king led from the front, inspiring loyalty and unity. The Galicians, however, lived in small villages and hill forts. Their economy was based on farming, herding, and trade, and they lacked the infrastructure to support large, long-lasting armies. When fighting, they often returned home after a successful raid or defensive victory. Their culture valued personal glory, and warriors often fought for reputation rather than territory. While this made them fearless, it also made them harder to command in large-scale, coordinated battles. The Macedonians could wage long wars, take cities, and hold territories. The Galicians could resist occupation and win defensive battles but struggled to maintain momentum without central leadership or resources. Chapter 6. The Battle. How would a clash go down? Let us imagine two scenarios. Scenario 1. Open field battle, ideal for Macedonians. The Macedonian phalanx forms its classic formation, rows of pikemen with sarissas bristling forward like a porcupine. Cavalry flanks are ready to exploit any break in enemy lines. The Galicians charge, yelling war cries, throwing javelins and trying to break the Macedonian line with sheer aggression. But the phalanx holds firm, its wall of pikes cutting down wave after wave. Some Galicians try to flank the formation, but the Macedonian cavalry, under a skilled general like Alexander himself, rides them down. In this scenario, the Galicians suffer heavy losses and are unable to break the disciplined ranks of the Macedonians. Scenario 2. Mountainous terrain, ideal for Galicians. Now picture narrow passes, dense forests, and rocky hills, terrain that breaks up large formations. The Macedonian phalanx struggles to maintain cohesion. Skirmishers and light infantry can cover all directions. Suddenly, Galician warriors emerge from the trees, hurling javelins, striking from above, and disappearing back into the woods. They attack supply lines, ambush patrols, and use their local knowledge to wear down the invaders. This is guerrilla warfare at its finest, and here, the Galicians have a real chance to win, or at least inflict serious damage. In open battle, Macedon wins decisively. In rough terrain, Galicians have the edge, so the outcome depends heavily on where and how the fight takes place. Chapter 7. Daily life and society. What did these soldiers live for? The Macedonian soldier lived in a society centered around the king and the state. He trained from youth, often served full-time, and saw military service as a path to glory and wealth. His life was structured. He followed orders, marched long distances, and lived in fortified camps. Life revolved around discipline, hierarchy, and loyalty to the crown. The Galician warrior, by contrast, was part of a tribal, agrarian society. He farmed when not at war, raised his family in hill forts, and lived close to nature. Warfare was personal, often driven by honor, revenge, or defense of land. He didn't follow strict drills or serve under a single commander. Instead, he fought alongside relatives and clan members, inspired by drums, chants, and ancestral pride. This made him brave and unpredictable, but less suited to prolonged campaigns or complex battlefield tactics. The Macedonian soldier was a professional fighter shaped by a militarized society. The Galician warrior was a tribal hero driven by tradition and survival. Their lifestyles influenced how they fought and who could win on the battlefield. Chapter 8. Technology and innovation. Who was more advanced? The Macedonians were innovators. Philippi revolutionized the army by introducing longer pikes, better training, and combined arms tactics. Alexander expanded on this by using siege engines, logistics, and psychological warfare to dominate enemies. They built roads, used standardized equipment, and had advanced fortification techniques. Their engineers could build bridges, battering rams, and even floating platforms during sieges. The Galicians, while skilled craftsmen, lacked centralized innovation. Their weapons were effective but varied from tribe to tribe. There is no evidence of organized engineering or mass production of war machines. However, they were quick to adapt, adopting elements of Celtic and Iberian technology, including chainmail and improved sword designs. The Macedonians clearly lead in military technology and organization. The Galicians were adaptable but lacked the infrastructure for large-scale innovation. Chapter 9. Legacy and influence. Which army left a bigger mark on history? The Macedonian army changed the world. It influenced the Hellenistic kingdoms, inspired later Roman tactics, and laid the groundwork for modern combined arms strategy. Its legacy is visible in military academies and historical studies today. Alexander's conquests reshaped Greece, Persia, Egypt, and India, spreading Greek culture across 3 continents. The Galicians, while respected for their resistance, never built an empire or left behind a major tactical system. However, they played a role in delaying both Carthaginian expansion and the Roman conquest of Spain. Their fierce independence helped shape the identity of the Iberian Peninsula, and their descendants still celebrate their Celtic roots today. The Macedonians changed global history through conquest and military influence. The Galicians left a cultural and regional legacy remembered for their bravery and resilience. Chapter 10, Final Verdict: Who has the better army? After comparing everything, who truly has the better army? It is tempting to say the Macedonians because they dominated empires, won decisive battles, and set the standard for ancient warfare. But the Galicians shouldn't be dismissed. They resisted powerful armies for centuries and adapted to survive in harsh conditions. Still, when we look at tactics, weapons, armor, discipline, and ability to sustain war, the Macedonian army comes out on top. They weren't just great fighters. They were engineers, strategists, and conquerors, and in a head-to-head battle on open ground, they likely cut through the Galician tribes like a hot knife through butter. While both armies were impressive in their own ways, the Macedonian elite army was more advanced, disciplined, and tactically superior, making it the winner in this comparison.